This is Mrs. Kennedy, and I'm coming to you for another Library Lady chapter book read aloud. We are currently working our way through Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone from J.K. Rowling. I'm reading from the illustrated version, beautifully illustrated by Jim Kay. Again, thank you to J.K. Rowling for giving permission for us to read these beautiful books to our students while we're off for our COVID-19 closures. So we are in chapter 3. Harry keeps getting these letters, and Mr. Dursley is not happy about it. Mrs. Dursley's not happy about it and won't let him see them. It was addressed to him in the cupboard under the stairs, so they decided to move him to Dudley's second bedroom, which Dudley did not like at all. And then he kept getting the letters, and the letters changed the address from cupboard under the stairs to the smallest bedroom. So the Dursleys are kind of worried that somebody's watching them too. So Harry has a plan of how he's going to get these letters. A repaired alarm clock rang at 6 o'clock the next morning. Harry turned it off and quickly dressed silently. He mustn't wake the Dursleys. He stole downstairs without turning on any of the lights. He was going to wait for the postman on the corner of Privet Drive and get the letters for number 4 first. His heart hammered as he crept across the dark hall towards the front door. Arrgh! Harry leapt into the air. He'd trodden on something big and squashy in the doormat, something alive. Lights clicked on upstairs, and to his horror, Harry realized that the big squashy something had been his uncle's face. Uncle Vernon had been lying at the foot of the front door in a sleeping bag, clearly making sure that Harry didn't do exactly what he'd been trying to do. He shouted at Harry for about a half an hour, then told him to go and make a cup of tea. Harry shuffled miserably off into the kitchen, and by the time he got back, the post had arrived, right into Uncle Vernon's lap. Harry could see 3 letters addressed in green ink. I want, he began, but Uncle Vernon was tearing the letters into little pieces before his eyes. Uncle Vernon didn't go to work that day. He stayed home and nailed up the letter box. See, he explained to Aunt Petunia through mouthfuls of nails, if they can't deliver them, they'll just give up. I'm not sure that will work, Vernon. Oh, these people's minds work in strange ways, Petunia. They're not like you and me, said Uncle Vernon, trying to knock in the nails with a piece of fruitcake Aunt Petunia had just brought him. So here he is. He's nailing the letterbox shut. So instead of a mailbox, they have like the slit on the door where they open it up and shove the letters through. On Friday, no fewer than 12 letters arrived for Harry. As they couldn't go through the letterbox, they'd been pushed under the door, slotted through the sides, and even a few forced down the small window in the downstairs toilet. Uncle Vernon stayed home again. After burning all the letters, he got out a hammer and nails and boarded up the cracks around the front and back doors so no one could get out. He hummed tiptoe through the tulips as he worked and jumped at small noises. On Saturday, things began to get out of hand. 24 letters to Harry found their way into the house, rolled up and hidden inside each of the 24 eggs that their very confused milkman had handed Petunia through the living room window. While Uncle Vernon made a furious telephone calls to the post office and the dairy, trying to find someone to complain to, Aunt Petunia shredded the letters in her food mixer. Who on earth wants to talk to you this badly? Dudley asked Harry in amazement. On Sunday morning, Uncle Vernon sat down at breakfast table looking tired and rather ill but happy. No post on Sundays, he reminded them as he spread marmalade on his newspapers. No letters today. Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney as he spoke and caught him sharply in the back of the head. Next moment, 30 or 40 letters came pelting out of the fireplace like bullets. The Dursleys ducked. Harry leapt into the air trying to catch one. Out! Out! Uncle Vernon seized Harry around the waist and threw him down the hall. When Aunt Petunia and Dudley had run out with their arms over their faces, Uncle Vernon slammed the door shut. They could hear the letters streaming into the room, bouncing off the walls and the floor. That does it, said Uncle Vernon, trying to speak calmly, but putting out great tufts of his mustache at the same time. I want you all back here in 5 minutes, ready to leave. We're going away. Just pack some clothes, no arguments. He looked so dangerous with half of his mustache missing that no one dared argue. 10 minutes later, they had wrenched their way through the boarded up doors and were in the car, speeding towards the motorway. Dudley was sniffling in the back seat. His father hit him around the head for holding them up while he tried to pack his television video game and computer in his sports bag. They drove and they drove. Even Aunt Petunia didn't dare ask where they were going. Every now and then, Uncle Vernon would take a sharp turn and drive in the opposite direction for a while. Shake 'em off, he would mutter whenever he did this. They didn't stop to eat or drink all day. By nightfall, Dudley was howling. He'd never had such a bad day in his life. He was hungry. He had missed 5 television programs he wanted to see and had never gone this long without blowing up an alien on his computer game. Uncle Vernon stopped at last outside a gloomy looking hotel on the outskirts of the big city. Dudley and Harry shared a room with twin beds and damp, musty sheets. Dudley snored, but Harry stayed awake, sitting on the windowsill, staring down at the lights of the passing cars and wondering. They ate stale cornflakes and cold tinned tomatoes on toast for breakfast the next day. They had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over to their table. Excuse me, but is one of you Mr. H. Potter? Only got about 100 of these at the front desk. She held up a letter so that they could read the green ink. Mr. H. Potter, room 17, Railview Hotel, Cookworth. Harry made a grab for the letter, but Uncle Vernon knocked it out of his hand. The woman stared. I'll take them, Uncle Vernon said, standing up quickly and following her from the dining room. Wouldn't it just be better to go home, dear? Aunt Petunia suggested timidly hours later, but Uncle Vernon didn't seem to hear her. Exactly what he was looking for, none of them knew. He drove into the middle of a forest, got out, looked around, shook his head, got back in the car, and off they went again. The same thing happened in the middle of a plowed field, halfway across the suspension bridge at the top of a multi-story car park. Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he? Dudley asked Petunia dully late that afternoon. Uncle Vernon had parked at the coast, locked them all inside the car, and just disappeared. It started to rain. Great drops beat on the roof of the car, and Dudley sniveled. It's Monday, he told his mother. The great Umberto's on television tonight. I want to stay somewhere with a television. Monday. This reminded Harry of something. If it was Monday, and you could usually count on Dudley to know the days of the week because of television, then tomorrow, Tuesday, was Harry's 11th birthday. Of course, his birthdays were never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursleys had given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. Still, you weren't 11 every day. Uncle Vernon was back and he was smiling. He was also carrying a long, thin package and didn't answer Aunt Petunia when she asked what he had bought. Found the perfect place, he said. Come on, everyone out. It was very cold outside the car. Uncle Vernon was pointing at what looked like a large rock out to sea. Perched on top of the rock was the most miserable little shack anyone could imagine. One thing was certain, there was no television in there. Storm forecast for tonight, said Uncle Vernon gleefully, clapping his hands together, and this gentleman's kindly agreed to lend us his boat. Toothless old man came ambling up to them, pointing a rather wicked grin at an old rowing boat bobbing in the iron gray water below them. I've already got us some rations, said Uncle Vernon, so all aboard. It was freezing in the boat. Icy sea spray and rain crept down their necks, and chilly wind whipped their faces. And after what seemed like hours, they reached the rock where Uncle Vernon, slipping and sliding, led the way to the broken down house. The inside was horrible. It smelled strongly of seaweed, and the wind whistled through the gaps in the wooden walls. Here's some rowing out to sea. And the fireplace was damp and empty. There were only 2 rooms. Uncle Vernon's rations turned out to be a pack of crisp each and 4 bananas. Crisp are potato chips. He tried to start a fire, but the empty crisp package just smoked and shriveled up. Could do with some of those letters now, eh? He said cheerfully. He was in a very good mood. Obviously thought nobody stood a chance of reaching them out here in a storm to deliver post. Harry privately agreed, though the thought didn't cheer him up. As night fell, the promised storm blew up around them. Spray from the high waves splattered the walls of the hut, and a fierce wind rattled the filthy windows. Aunt Petunia found a few moldy blankets in the second room and made up a bed for Dudley on the moth-eaten sofa. She and Uncle Vernon went off to the lumpy bed next door, and Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor he could and curl up under the thinnest, most ragged blanket. The storm raged more and more ferociously as the night went on, and Harry couldn't sleep. He shivered and turned over, trying to get comfortable, his stomach rumbling with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned out by the loud, low rolls of thunder that started near midnight. The lighted dial of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa on his fat wrist, told Harry that he'd be 11 in 10 minutes' time. He lay and watched his birthday tick near, wondering if the Dursleys would remember at all, wondering where the letter writer was now. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard something creak outside. He hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, although it might be warmer if it did. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house on Privet Drive would be so full of letters when they got back he'd be able to steal one somehow. 3 minutes to go. Was that the sea slapping on a rock like that? And 2 minutes ago. What was that funny crunching noise? Was the rock crumbling into the sea? 1 minute to go. He'd be 11. 30 seconds. 20, 10, 9. Maybe he'd wake Dudley up just to annoy him. 3, 2, 1. Boom! The whole shack shivered. And Harry sat bolt upright, staring at the door. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. And we will find out more about who that was and what's going on tomorrow. Have a great night. Always keep reading.